So as I mentioned, I'm Rachel Astarte. For those who don't know me, I am a holistic psychotherapist. I'm an author, an educator. Uh, these are some representations of what I do. Obviously, on the left, you see my book, Celebrating Solitude, which I'll talk a little bit about later, but that's a text that we will be using in the larger version of these courses. And this is what you're taking today, this boundaries course, is a mini version of a larger course that will be offered as part of the Awakened Women Mentors community. I'm also a podcaster. I'm so happy to say that Self-Talk with Rachel Astarte is in its 5th year. And that's a great podcast to listen to when you are in between therapy sessions, for example, and just want a little boost for yourself to keep yourself activated and going. I have interviews, and I also have some talks that I do just solo. And then there are also a number of articles that I've written, not just on solitude. I also have some articles on sexuality, on midlife, living as a woman in midlife. You can actually find, if anybody uses Substack, you can find my Substack there, which is called Polishing the Gem. But otherwise, if you just want to check me out, you don't know me all that well, those 2 URLs at the bottom of the screen are how you can find me and learn a little bit more. Okay, so let's dive in. This is what we're going to cover in this hour. And before I talk about that, what I'd like you all to do, if you haven't already, is keep in mind a boundary issue that you might have with someone right now, because we're going to be working on those later. And this isn't a quiz, so don't stress yourself. But I'm assuming that if you're here, either now or in the past, you might have had some issues with boundaries with other people. So hopefully this will be able to help you, but we're going to work on them. We're going to practice how to create a healthy and loving boundary with people. So just have that in the back of your mind as we move through. So what we're going to cover: a new way of looking at boundaries. In other words, what are they and what are they not? Why boundaries are essential for healthy relationships, and how do we find the right words to express those boundaries? We know that boundaries are important, but we're really going to dive into how important they are. Okay. And this is important too. This was a big one for me, so I wanted to put this into the presentation. What happens when you create a boundary and you express a really good boundary, but they're not honored? That's a problem. So we're going to talk about that. And my clicker thing is not working. Okay. And of course, we are going to practice healthy boundaries, as I mentioned earlier. Okay. But before we get into all that, and I'm going to stop the share for one moment, I want to tell you a little story about boundaries. I had a client not long ago who was having a real issue with boundaries. He came from a very large family, and because there were so many children in his family, he found it difficult to connect with, particularly with his father. But what he wanted more than anything was for his family to accept him as he was. The problem with this was that the only way that he could connect to his family was to drink with them. They were big drinkers. And so in order for him to get connected to them, he would have to drink with them. Now you can see the problem. The alcohol was not something that he wanted in his life. It was affecting his immediate family, that is to say his new wife, and she was pregnant with their first child. So he knew that drinking was not what he wanted to do in his life anymore. However, in order to get close to his family, particularly his father, he would have to drink with them. And it wasn't healthy drinking. It was drink until you fall down, and fighting and anger and all this kind of thing. So what happened was, I said to him, okay, so where's the problem for you? Where's the boundary issue? He said, well, I want to say no. I want to say no, I don't want to drink with you. But I don't know how to do that without alienating my entire family, because this is part of our culture. And I said, well, forget them for a second. What do you want? He said, well, I want to stop drinking. And I said, so let's try that. Let's see what would happen if you go to a family event and you don't drink. And this was really scary, as you can imagine. But he did it. And he went to the next family gathering and he tried to connect with his family and say, I'm just going to have this seltzer, and this is how I'm going to be. And I just want to be with you guys. I just want you to hang out with me. Well, not surprisingly, he was made fun of. He was teased. He was told, go on, just have a drink. What's wrong with you, you freak? Blah, blah, blah. It was the opposite of what he wanted to happen. And what he ended up doing, and we're going to talk about this later, is that he used what I call radical honesty. He said, listen, the reason I'm doing this is because I want to get closer to you guys. And I want you to see me as I am. And this is who I am. And it took, and I'm not going to say it happened overnight, but it took a few more gatherings with his family for them to really understand that he was just going to have a seltzer and he was just going to hang out. And over time, and I could say now he's had his second child, and the family does accept that he doesn't drink with them anymore. And of course, his relationship with his wife is a lot better, and he can be a better father too. So this is an example of how creating loving and healthy boundaries can work. And saying no is a way to create a boundary. And I'm sure there are many others that we'll talk about as well. Okay, so let's go back to the presentation. All right, so let's talk for a minute about boundaries versus walls. Well, that's in the title of this presentation. We don't want to create walls. We want to create boundaries. So what's the difference? Here's what a boundary is. It establishes your relationship with a situation, within the situation or the relationship. So you are expressing your needs in a particular situation. Pretty easy. We all kind of know what that means. It also strengthens our relationship to others and to ourselves if we do it right. So why does, obviously it can strengthen our relationship to others because we have a boundary met, and therefore it puts us at ease. How does it strengthen our relationship to ourselves? Is self-esteem. It's a sense of knowing who we are and knowing that we have taken care of ourselves. And finally, it opens our heart instead of making us feel like we are angry or upset or have to draw a line in the sand, like you see in this image here. There's a clear line between the two people, but they're facing each other. Yeah. And then we have what a wall might be. A wall will isolate you from somebody else. So again, drawing a line in the sand and turning your back. It's like, this is what I want. And if you don't like it, too bad. That actually causes stress and strain in a relationship. It weakens our bonds with other people. They feel offended and we feel indignant. And then, clicky isn't working. Well, it's not working. But the other part of it, of course, is that it will close your heart. And that's not what we want. Okay. So what are some objections? What are some objections to setting boundaries? The main one is, I don't want to hurt their feelings. If I say what I need, and by the way, in the chat, feel free, pop in. If these are making sense to you, say yes, yep. Or if there are other objections to boundaries that come up as you're listening, please throw them in the chat, because we, and I'm monitoring the chat, Ava's monitoring the chat, so we are all communicating together. Okay. So I don't want to hurt their feelings. If I say what I need, They may feel rejected. A big one is, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to relay my boundary without sounding like a bitch. You know what I mean? So how do I say this? How do I do this in a way that doesn't hurt people? We're going to get two at a time. Apparently my clicker isn't working properly, but that's okay. What if the person gets angry at me if I express my boundary? What am I going to do? How will I manage that? That's the opposite of what I want. And even worse, what if it ruins our relationship? And finally, I'm afraid that my boundary won't be honored. And as I said, we are going to address that because God knows that does happen. So as you go into this presentation, I want you to hold close to your heart. You can take a screenshot if you want. This is your boundaries mantra that you're going to use from now on, should it speak to you, only if it speaks to you. My boundaries benefit both of us. My boundaries benefit both of us. And we're going to explain how that happens as we go through, but keep it in mind as we go on. Okay, so how does it benefit both people? Let's look at that. This is what your boundaries protect the other person from: your anger. Imagine if you don't create a boundary, what happens? You get angry. Makes sense. And you're protecting the other person from your anger. You're protecting the other person from your resentment. If you don't speak up about what you need and you expect them to just know it, you're going to build resentment when, of course, that boundary is not honored. And of course, passive aggression. So that happens when we just like, oh, no, it's okay. It's totally fine. No, it's fine. Do whatever you want. Walk all over me. It's fine because I'm cool with it. Right? So this is how we serve the other person in a loving way. So keep that in mind. Not only are your needs being met, you are protecting the other person from your anger, your resentment, and perhaps your passive aggression. So we're going to talk a little bit about both the internal and external, or the inner and outer importance of creating a loving boundary and how to do it. The first thing, and this is hugely important, know why you're creating the boundary. And this is a deeper point than you might realize. Well, I know why I'm creating the boundary, because I don't want my mother to phone me at 7 a.m. That's the surface reason, but that's not the underlying reason you're creating a boundary. So as you're listening, if you could put in the chat, what would be, and if anyone's worked with me in therapy, you know I'm going to ask for the emotion underneath. What is the emotion underneath creating a boundary? For example, I don't want my mother or my best friend or whoever to call me at 7 a.m. What does it do to you if they do that? What happens internally for you? Right? So throw that in the chat if you have some answers. I can tell you that when we look at it from an emotional perspective, what we're saying in many cases is, I'm creating this boundary because it hurts. I feel like I'm not being respected. Yeah? You don't care about my time. Right? So Cameron's saying worry, anxiety, 100%. And Deborah's saying stress seems to come from a demand that person needs my energy and I want it now. Victoria's saying I'm not being heard. Yes, Nancy, irritation. Yes, and Carrie said the same thing. I'm not being heard. It's a violation, and that hurts. And at our core being, that's what the real reason is that we create that boundary. So it's very important to know why you're creating the boundary, not what the boundary is, but why you're creating it. That's for you. Next, we want to imagine, what would it be like without that boundary? So if you don't say anything and your mom keeps calling you at 7 a.m, what's that like for you? You can see where that previous slide comes in. You get angry and resentful and you know, passive aggressive and all that good stuff. Right. So imagine what it would be like without it. Consider the effects of not having that boundary in place, not just for yourself, but for your relationship. It's important to step through all of this before you actually create a boundary so that you know that when you do create your boundary, you're doing it from a clean and clear place. Stay grounded in yourself. And this means boundary creation is not a mental thing. It is a body thing, right? Again, those who have worked with me before know that we work with the body, mind, and the spirit. If you are agitated in your body, you will be agitated in your mind. And of course, your spirit will be all out of sorts as well. Drop into your body, feel your feet, check in with yourself. What is this boundary really about for me? And then, of course, remind yourself of your mantra. And there it is, a little helpful. Feel free to screenshot any of this. You can put it on your desktop. That's what I do. I have these little 3x5 cards. I write all my little mantras on. Okay. Moving on. So here are the external ways to create a loving boundary. Choose the right time. That's a really important one, right? So for example, your mother has called, I keep using this one, and it is not true, by the way. This is not about my mother. So in case anybody wonders, if your mother has just called you at 7 a.m. and you pick up the phone, that is not the right time to create the boundary necessarily, because you might be agitated at that moment. So choose the right time. Be sure, and this is where the body part comes in, speak clearly and calmly. Clearly is important. Have your boundary language correct and clear so that it is not going to be misunderstood. And again, keep yourself grounded as you speak. This is the little secret. Breathe. No one's going to know if you stop and take a breath. I can tell you I've done it many times in agitated conversation. Bring your attention to your feet and take a long, slow, deep breath. No one's going to know you're doing it, and it's immensely helpful for you. Use I statements and loving language. So there's an example. I have trouble connecting to you when you speak loudly. Please speak a little softer. Again, you're not saying you yell at me, because that's going to put someone on the defensive. When you use an I statement, you are owning your feelings about the boundary. That means the power stays with you, which is what we want. And then use radical honesty as needed. So to the left in this little info, or yeah, to the right, because I don't know my left from right. Radical honesty is very simple, and we're going to talk about it a lot. And it's so useful throughout your life, not just in boundaries. Stating a positive outcome that's obvious to you, but may not be obvious to the other person. My alone time helps me be a better partner to you. So if you recall that story about my client and the drinking and with his family, his radical honesty was telling them something that they might not have known, which is, I want to be closer to you. That's why I'm doing this. I want you to see me as I am, not as you expect me to be. That's radical honesty. Does that make sense? Yes, in the chat. Just want to make sure. See, I will keep talking if you don't tell me yes, you understand. Okay. Good. Will I say it again? Thank you, Cameron. Of course I will. Radical honesty is saying something that internally makes sense to you, but by expressing it to the other person, you're actually enforcing the positive, loving connection. So by telling them, I need my alone time for 30 minutes after work, that helps me to be a better partner to you. It's not just saying, leave me alone when I get home, because that hurts the other person, doesn't it? Oh, you don't want to be with me. No, I want to do this because it helps us. It lets me be a better partner. So the radical honesty part is something that's very obvious to you, but it could actually be of huge benefit to the other person if they understand why you're doing what you're doing. And radical honesty is a huge component of boundary creation. Okay, cool. Remember, when you come from a place of love, your boundary will as well. Remember your mantra. There's another mantra for you. When you come from a place of love, so will your boundary, because we're doing that internal check. Wait a minute. Am I drawing a boundary because I'm full of anger and rage? Then I got to take care of that myself. I have to come from a place of love in order for me to have an effective boundary, right? You do not have to justify or explain your boundary. Back to my client, right? Well, I just don't want to drink because, you guys are all idiots when you drink. You know what I mean? You don't have to explain it. It is not their concern. This is about being grounded in yourself. It's not your responsibility to explain your boundary, but it is your responsibility to express it cleanly and clearly and from a place of love. How others react to your boundary is their business, not yours. This is a big one, right? That's addressing the what if they get hurt. If you have come from a place of love, if you have stated your boundary clearly, and you have not needed to justify yourself, and maybe you even use some radical honesty about your intention, which is not the same as justification, then they may get upset. In the case of my client, his father was threatened. He wanted to drink with his son. So he was teasing him mercilessly for a long time. But he had to stay strong in his convictions that in the long run, this boundary was going to make the relationship better. So how they react is not your concern. That's more about what's going on with them than what's going on with you. And of course, use radical honesty when needed. That's so effective. Whenever you feel like you're at a crossroads when you're expressing your boundary, practice the radical honesty. Go back to your inner self. Wait a minute, why am I doing this in the first place? Because I want a better relationship. If you didn't care about the person, you wouldn't create the boundary. And that goes for colleagues as well. Colleague keeps coming in, sitting at your desk and chatting in the morning when you have work to do and you need to draw a boundary. You care about your relationships at work, right? So using radical honesty is, hey, Mary, I love talking to you and I can't wait to hear about you taking your cat to the vet. I can't do it now. I can't do it now. I have to focus, right? See what a difference that makes. Okay, so as I forewarned, we're going to do a boundary practice. So everybody, if you've stepped away from your computer, I'm calling you back. At the beginning, I asked you to come up with a boundary that you might be working on right now. So what I'd like for you to do is take 5 minutes. We're going to time it. Ava and I are on it. And we're going to give you 5 minutes where you are just going to write down, and it can be more than one. If you have a lot of them, great. And we're going to work with at least one of them. So what I'd like you to do is think of a boundary that you need to set with somebody. And then what I'd like you to do, part 2, is write that boundary out like a little script as if you're speaking to them. So 2 parts, the boundary, who is it with? What is the situation? And then given everything that we've learned so far, do your best, because I know we've kind of gone through this quickly, do your best to write out a little script. Are there any questions about what I'm asking? You can either just unmute yourself and ask, or you can put them in the chat. Is that okay? If you cannot, maybe I'll save time. Is there anyone here who cannot think of a boundary? Okay, Deborah's saying she can't think of a boundary. I'm surprised, but okay. Nancy's saying she can't think of a boundary either. Okay. Now, Nancy, you said you have your father. coming to live with you soon? Could you think of a scenario where some of your personal space might be needing to be honored, that, something like that? Think a little bit about your life, and it's better to use something from your own life. But if you can't, Rachel has you covered. Here are some optional scenarios that you can use just to practice, okay? Here's one. Your friend keeps showing up at your house unannounced. Okay, that's one. Number 2, your boss calls you late at night. Work, right? And then this one we kind of addressed earlier, but you can use this too. You need 30 minutes of downtime after work, but your partner wants to talk to you as soon as you get home. So if you can't think of a boundary, pick one of those. Your friend shows up at your house unannounced all the time, your boss calls you late at night, or you need 30 minutes of downtime after work, but your partner wants to get at you as soon as you come home. Is that clear? Oh, so Carrie's saying, I have a self-centered friend who talks only about herself. Brilliant. That I'd use that one. Nancy has a boundary now. Everybody got a boundary? Yes, please say yes. Because we're going to be working with these. There's no point in me yapping at you for an hour without you actually practicing, or else you're getting nothing out of this, right? Okay. Cool. Good. All right. So we're going to take 5 minutes. You're going to write your boundary out, and then you're going to write a mini little script. Diana's saying, can you please share appropriate boundary statements related to the examples you just shared? Well, I'm not going to do your homework for you, but what I am going to do is I'm going to bring back the slide about how to create loving boundaries. All right, so let me do that. So while we use our 5 minutes, so the question, sharing appropriate, I think I'm understanding you, Diana, the sharing appropriate boundary statements. This is the exercise, is I'd like you to try it on your own. And it's okay if you get it wrong, because that's what this class is for, is to tweak it and get you crafted in the right way. So I'm going to share again the How to Create Loving Boundaries page. And we're going to give you 5 minutes and enjoy. Stop the share. Okay, everybody. Everyone good? You got a little something? Okay. What we're going to do now is we're going to put you into groups, and you're going to share what. And so what I'd like you to do, Ava's going to put you into little breakout rooms, and it won't be too long. So all I'd like you to do is explain your boundary, and then read your script and listen. And as you are listening, so you both have, everyone in the group will have a chance to listen as though you are the person, and see how it feels. Check your body. How does it feel when you hear these words? And help your team member tweak it if necessary. And then we'll come back and share. Beautiful. Okay, so Ava, are you there? I don't know if she's there anymore.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, beautiful. Can we do some breakout rooms? It looks like we have about 9 people. So let's do breakout rooms of 3.
Okay.
3 of 3. And there may be, yeah, there's 3 and 3. And then we'll give you about 3 minutes each, 5 minutes each. What do you, 3 minutes should be fine. Okay. All right, so
I've
make
never done a breakout room before, so I'm not quite sure how to.
Okay, so you don't have to do a thing, except you'll get a little message coming up on your screen that says join the breakout room, and you just hit OK.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Are we good, Ava? How's it going? Okay. See you soon. Ah, it added another minute. That's okay.
That was hysterical.
Yeah. All right. We'll see. I guess people are still winding up. So we'll just.
I just gave an example of one I did already. So because I couldn't, because I've already set them all, Rachel.
Well, look at you, Miss Thing.
We're
Didn't
done.
even need the class then, I guess.
Yeah.
She's very yeah, she's solid on her boundaries.
Good. That's what we want. Yes, but are they loving?
Well, then and that's what I stressed is that, like, I just tell people to fuck right off.
Yeah. That's one way to do it.
That is one way to do
It
it.
is.
Not the most effective necessarily.
Doesn't.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Oh, well.
All right. Well, no, not oh well, because so now I'm going to just open up. And this is not required at all, but does anyone want to share a little bit of their experience? Just start chatting if you this breakout rooms. How did it go?
I got some good feedback on my situation,
Okay, good.
which was the situation where I have a friend who is very self-focused, and there was some comments about being able to say to her, I'd like to hear about that after I finished my thoughts. I thought that was a good one. And or saying, that's interesting, Kate. However, I'd like to finish my thought. And I thought those were some pretty good suggestions around boundaries.
Excellent. Beautiful. I love it.
Came from Victoria.
Nice. Thank you, Victoria. That's awesome. Okay. Anybody else want to share any illuminating moments that they had?
Michelle and I had a very kindred moment. I'm currently staying with my mother, and I love my mother very much. She brought me into this world, so I'm very grateful for that. And I reflected to her some of the challenges that I have around support, like jumping in to help her without her asking me explicitly. And I kind of laid out a little bit of a statement of what I would say to kind of set this boundary of like, this is the song and dance we've been doing for a while, and I cannot keep jumping in to help you without you asking for it. But what Michelle reflected back at me in this moment was that in that statement, this statement that I made that I'm happy to read to you all if you would like to hear it.
Yeah.
I completely ignored my why. I still ignored myself in the statement and naming why this boundary matters to me and why it is something that I need in order to be able to continue to show up for her. So would you like for me to read what I wrote?
Absolutely.
So, okay. Mom, I noticed that when things break or malfunction, you get upset, and it makes me feel sad that you are upset. I feel like you want help, and of course I want to help you. I can't help you anymore unless you ask. That was the original statement. And then I kind of appended this why, so it's not beautifully nestled in there, but my why was not as beautifully articulated, but I need this boundary because I want to remain happy helping you, and I want to help you out of my own care and my own energy, like that, my own will, not out of a sense of obligation or a sense of like requirement, because I don't want to become resentful when I do step in to help my mother. And that was, Michelle really helped reflect that back at me. So that was really lovely.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
And Cameron we were very well matched in this. We both have we're clearly having the same issues with our mothers, and telling them no, when of course we want to help them, all of these things. And two, we wanted to continue our conversation as well, because it felt a little bit short on time. I'm sorry to say that, but excellent as well, because part of the why and part of settling all of this in for ourselves is understanding too that our mothers, everyone else, has their own traumas that they're dealing with. And you know, I know, speaking of my mom and knowing her history and knowing that whether she's going to hear me or not, that's another part of this to think about. Having spoken these things clearly to her, calmly to her, is a level that I would like to get to, because, you know, usually this comes out in some kind of explosive thing. And being able to say these things clearly and calmly to her, whether she hears them or not, I think it is a huge step forward, even in my own making a boundary for myself and being able to deal with her own response to it, and however she responds to it, but knowing that that's on her. That was really helpful to come to that conclusion with this.
Yeah.
So
Thank you for that. And that's a really important point that we're going to talk about actually in a second. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Thank you, Michelle. And Cameron too, you know, with Michelle's guidance, what you brought in was radical honesty, right? Which is, this is why I'm doing this, for you, but also for me, right? It's your boundary, but it's in order for you to help her out of love and not obligation. Beautiful. Yeah. Great. Anybody else before we move on? Okay. Is everyone okay with staying maybe 5-10 minutes beyond? Okay. Because, and it won't be too much longer, but I just want to clear that with everybody. Good. I love it. Anybody else before we carry on? Okay. And we're almost done, but I just want to check in. All right. So let's go back. And now we're going to address what we talked about earlier. What happens when your loving boundary is not honored? So this can happen. And trust me, I have had it happen to me many times. So here's the way that we can work with it. The first time that it happens, we're human. You know, people forget. You think you've created a clear boundary, but maybe it wasn't clear, or the timing wasn't right. Remember, we talked about the right timing, and Michelle referred to that too. Sometimes you're just heightened and then you got to do this for me or whatever. So sitting down at the right time. If that wasn't met, you might find that they didn't get it. So the first thing that we do is a gentle reminder. And this is the language we might use. These are suggestions, and you'll find your own language. So you might not remember, but I told you I don't want to help you out of obligation, right? Because that ruins our dynamic or whatever. Hey, remember when I mentioned this thing a few days ago? This happened again. Does that make sense? Okay. There's a little lag. Damn it. All right, well, that's okay. We'll just leave it all up. So the second time we have to do a firm reminder. And again, having loving boundaries doesn't mean that you are a doormat to walk over. We have to be firm. And so the second time this happens, you say it. That's radical honesty. This is the second time that I've reminded you of X, Y, or Z. Or are you aware that, and you have to rename the boundary, right? So they know what you're talking about. Remember when I said I didn't want you calling me at 7 a.m, even though I you know, you just did that again, even though I've asked you that not to do that, right? This is, again, the perfect time for radical honesty. Just a reminder, I'm doing this because I want us to have a better relationship. Here's even more radical honesty. When you want to talk to me after I come home from work and I'm all agitated and I need time to decompress and you don't give it to me, I get angry at you and I don't want to do that, right? Again, we're taking it on ourselves. We're not putting it on them. I don't want to be pissy with you. You don't want me to be pissy with you, right? That's radical honesty. And then the third time, we have to be a little more forceful. And it may be when you have someone who will not honor your boundaries, it's time to consider space from the relationship, or it may require an end to the relationship. And this is the language that you use. If you can't honor my request, I won't be able to spend time with you. Right? If you don't honor my request, I won't be able to let you into my office to sit and have a cup of coffee with me before we start work. Right? Make sense? Yes and no?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm seeing nodding, so I'm going to take that as a yes. Okay. Now, anybody still feeling shitty about creating boundaries? A little bit? A little? Okay, good. In case you're still feeling bad, know this guy? This is I swear to God, I tried to find a Middle Eastern Jesus. I could not find a picture of a Middle Eastern Jesus. I'm sorry that he is white as snow, but it makes the point. Our dear beloved historical and or mythological friend Jesus. Matthew 21:12, Jesus cleanses the temple. Jesus said, you do not sell on the grounds of my Father's house. And so what does he do? He entered the temple courts, drove out all who were buying and selling there, overturned the tables of the money changers and the benches of those selling doves. Look at that face. It means business. So it's okay to create a forceful boundary. It's okay to do that. Jesus is the most nice guy we know, quintessential nice guy, but he has his boundaries. And this is also, by the way, because I love using the Bible as metaphor, this is a metaphor for love and boundaries. No one is going to tell you that Jesus stands for anything other than love. So there is the embodiment in mythological terms of love, and he still is able to maintain a healthy boundary. Make sense? Yeah, so in case you still feel bad, Jesus did it. So if Jesus did it, you can do it, right?
No, none of us are Jesus here. That's the problem.
Well, we can always aspire to the teachings, right? So beautiful. So there ends this lesson. What I do want to share with you now as we come back and chat, are there any questions that you have about what you just learned today? Anything that, and honestly, there are no stupid questions. If there's anything that you're still feeling uncertain about, ask. That's why we're here.
I have a question.
Sure, Linda.
Person who almost always is the person who breaks a boundary that I set for, don't text me or call me at this time and blah, 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 is a really good friend of mine. And she's chronically ill. She was a first responder at 9/11. I, take her food. I did, I don't know. I don't know how to get real with her anymore because she continues to, and she's a clinical psychologist.
Isn't that always the way? You're the craziest. I'm just
yeah. I don't know. I mean, she just does it. And Deborah asked me, well, why do you respond? And sometimes I ignore the text, ignore the call, but other times I feel guilty for doing that.
Okay. That's it right there. Right. So when we bring ourselves back to the reason that we create the boundary, we have to remind ourselves that this is for the health of the relationship, that we do this with love, right? So even if you get to the third infraction, and I don't know what your friend's name is, but you say to her, hey, remember that thing about, and using radical honesty with someone like this should be really helpful. Explain the consequences for you. What happens? I can't be there for you. It's too much. And I want to be there for you. You are an important friend to me. And
Yeah.
when you give me these texts and I just can't be there. Now you guys may reach a compromise where she can say, well, I'm going to, unless it really troubles you that the texts are coming in, that's something to discuss with her. And it might hit the point where you have to say, I'm not going to be able to be that close with you anymore. But I don't like to go to that extreme. If you can, and it doesn't sound like you do either. So if you can stand it, you might come to a compromise and say, hey, you can text me, but I hope you understand I won't be able to respond for some time until I'm ready. How do you feel about that?
Yeah.
Right? So now you're honoring her, you're honoring yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. That's excellent advice. Yeah.
We have to remember why we're doing it. That's what keeps it real. And what Michelle said earlier too is having compassion for the other person. They are going through something, but and so yes, we can honor that, but it's not our responsibility to fix it or be the sounding board or be the punching bag or whatever metaphor you want to use.
Yeah.
We can't give back to our friends and family and colleagues and everybody if we are having our love extorted from us. Just can't happen. So we do that for them. We do it for them. Yeah, cool. Anybody else have any questions? Beautiful. All right. And again, thank you so much for attending. It's been lovely to work with all of you today. Thank you to Ava for your amazing admin work. And if there are no other questions, I will bid you adieu.
Thank you so much. That was really wonderful.
Bye. Thank you all. Be well.
Take care, everybody.
Yeah.